Today, Donald Trump made good on one of his oft promises during his campaign in an announcement about the future of our relationship with Israel. Here's an excerpt.
I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. Today, I am delivering. I've judged this course of action to be in the best interests of the United States of America and the pursuit of peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
We're almost a year into his presidency, but seeing that video of him between two flags saying, "I've decided we're changing the official embassy, like the place of the embassy," it still feels surreal. Yeah. But he's doing it. Now, there's something that's been discussed for a long time. At various points, it's been supported by both Republicans and by Democrats. Back during the 90s, it was like overwhelmingly voted in favor of in the Senate, but it never happened. As he points out, they would promise it and then they would fail to deliver. He doesn't mention why maybe they failed to deliver. There could be a good reason.
Yeah, so you're right. Anytime you remember who Donald Trump actually is, which is a reality host and a leader of a three-ring circus, and you have him setting official U.S. policy, it's good. I think that he thought he was firing Tel Aviv. So Tel Aviv, you're fired. We're on to Jerusalem. Okay, so now it's a very serious issue. The reason why they promise it is because it plays well with Christian evangelicals in this country and others as well. Some Jewish Americans, not all. In fact, a majority of Jewish Americans in America are 70% Democrats. So they're one of the strongest Democratic voting bases in the country. Now, the reason they change their mind once they get into office is because people sit them down and talk about the reality of the Middle East, and they say, well, we could move it to Jerusalem, but you know that Muslims, Christians, and Jews all consider Jerusalem, in a sense, in some ways, their spiritual capital. And in the case of physically the people that are there, the Palestinians are in East Jerusalem, and they view that to be their capital. So if we tell the whole Muslim world that no, Jerusalem isn't yours anymore, we've given it to Israel, well, people are going to be enraged. And even top allies like the King of Jordan today saying, this was a terrible idea.
Saudi Arabia saying the same. Turkey, Erdogan put out a statement saying it's a horrible idea. The UK, not a fan of it. We don't have the graphic here. Oh, I almost spoiled something that's not been announced yet. But anyway, CNN had a graphic of how many countries have an embassy in Tel Aviv and how many have an embassy in Jerusalem. And it was 98 in Tel Aviv, and then the rest were in Jerusalem, which was 0. There were none, and there's a reason for that. As you say, like, I don't think that Donald Trump, he says, I judged its time, as if he had thought at all or understood the consequences. He doesn't understand the history of how parts of Eastern Jerusalem were initially acquired by Israel, why the UN considers that to be an illegal settlement, the consequences in terms of the settlements that have been set up since then. He should know a little bit about that, since Jared Kushner had been funding some of those illegal settlements, but I doubt he knows about that either. It's, as you say, it's purely based on his belief that this will play well amongst the evangelicals in America who have this crazy religious belief that we need to set off an apocalypse in that part of the world. And unfortunately, while there will be no religious apocalypse that ushers in the end times, there could be actual violence there. And this brings us a big step closer to that.
So if you're a right winger and you think, what do I care that the Palestinians are upset? Oh, they hate us because they hate us. And King Abdullah II of Jordan, who cares about him? Well, that's because you're ignorant. King Abdullah II is a strong ally of the United States and has kept Jordan relatively stable. Now, would I prefer that Jordan have a democracy? Yes. But given the wild instability of the rest of the Middle East, at least he has got that country somewhat under control. The reason he's upset is not because he's a Muslim, maybe, I doubt it though, that he's a Muslim who's like, oh man, Jerusalem really shouldn't be the Israeli capital. No, what he's saying to you is, now you're going to destabilize my country, and when you do that, instead of having a secular leader in charge, you might have more fundamentalists that rise up and take Jordan, which would be a terrible idea, not only for America, but also for Israel.
Definitely. There's a proximity issue at stake there. Now, while I believe, and it seems like you believe, he's doing this to fire up his base, and we understand that this definitely is a major policy change for the US. It has consequences for the UN, certainly for the future of any peace process that happens between Israel and Palestine. He's actually going to tread carefully in this speech, which is interesting. So listen to this second section of the speech.
I also want to make one point very clear. This decision is not intended in any way to reflect a departure from our strong commitment to facilitate a lasting peace agreement. We want an agreement that is a great deal for the Israelis and a great deal for the Palestinians. We are not taking a position of any final status issues.
So they're saying this doesn't really represent anything. But of course it does.
Of course
it's one of the principal points of negotiation that will have to take place before any sort of solution to the problem. And he's just basically given it, it's not finalized or anything, but for us, from our point of view, as one of the strongest arbiters of what happens there, it's finalized. As if, I mean, look, we give huge support to Israel. Last year we signed a 10-year, $38 billion arms deal with Israel, which is more than even the decade before. But this is just another symbolic move on top of it, which is incredibly important for every side in that conflict.
Of course, they're right wing with their hypocrisy. They're like, oh, what are we giving money to other countries for? Actually, the #1 recipient of US aid is Israel. Oh, okay, I like that one. All right, so
I read the Congressional Research Service said that Israel is the largest cumulative recipient of US foreign assistance since World War II.
Yeah. Okay, so
this is worth noting.
Yeah, and look, at one point they desperately needed it. Now they are the mega power in the Middle East.
They export arms.
Yeah, why are we, it's like us giving money randomly to Germany. They're a good, great ally, God bless their hearts. UK, Canada, wonderful allies.
It'd be like giving money to oil companies.
But why are we giving them money? It doesn't make any sense. At least if the country needed it, well, okay, that's fine, right? But then at least you're doing something magnanimous, etc. But they have illegal settlements and we're funding them. So now look, as to my opinions on, and one more thing about the finality of this. They're not moving the embassy tomorrow. It's going to be 6 months from now because it's a logistical mess to do that. At least it buys a little bit of time for someone, the next president, I don't know, to be able to reverse that policy because it is disastrous. And I want to be clear about something. I don't want politicians lying to you saying, oh, I'm going to move the embassy, and then they come in and they go back on their word. That's why they shouldn't say they're going to move the embassy in the first place. That's the principal lie. And Trump got 81% of the white evangelical vote. This is part of how he got it, which is, hey, don't worry, I don't care. I'll create a mess in the Middle East as long as I'll get your vote. And by the way, some of those Christian fundamentalists, they actually do want a war in the Middle East. That's part of Armageddon. That's part of how Jesus comes back. That's their end times philosophy. So to them, moving the capital to Jerusalem is a win-win. It fulfills one part of the prophecy, and it is more likely to create a giant war in the Middle East that gets almost all of us killed. That's not the bug, that's the feature. And that's not me saying it. They have said it over and over again. Part of the prophecy is you rip down one of the mosques in that area, and then that leads to a war where almost everyone on the planet dies. And that's what these fundamentalist maniac Christians in America are looking forward to. And I hear that the fundamentalist Muslims are the problem, and they are. But the fundamentalist Christians, in setting the world on fire here, are a huge part of the problem.
It's possible fundamentalism is the problem.
Exactly. Now, what do I think about Jerusalem? I don't care. I think it's a giant pain in the ass. Holy city, what a nonsense. And not only is it nonsense, it's convinced all these people that believe in ancient myths, oh, we have to kill each other to fight over this piece of territory. It's not even that attractive to begin with. If you fought over LA or Hawaii, I'd get it, right? Oh my God, Jerusalem, a piece of dirt in the middle of godforsaken country that some rabbi came up with a myth 2,500 years ago that we're still following. It's insanity. I don't give a damn about Jerusalem, but I'm not the issue. If I was the one resolving it, I'd be like, okay, you guys get half, the other guys get half. We're done with it. Who gives a damn, right? But you are going to start holy wars with this idiotic idea because they do care. The Muslims care, the Jews care, the Christians care, and they're willing to kill people over it. And it's not just the Muslims. It's our evangelical Christians saying Armageddon, where 7 billion people die, is what we pray for. These monsters. Watch the Young Turks commercial free, download it or stream it, watch it any way you like at tytnetwork.com/join.